Hello, everybody. Bob Chick back with another edition of the Voice of Bodybuilding podcast. I am joined once again by my partner in crime, Hall of Famer, Sugar, Shawn Ray. What's up, buddy?
All right. Looks like we're getting closer to another Arnold Classic. We just finished with the LA Fit Expo, which typically launches the new year. The snowbirds come out to California. Of course, those fires have been put out, but it's a good experience at the LA Fit Expo, getting to see all the guys bebopping around, Chris Cormier, Jay Cutler, and the like. But, it really starts the last week of February in Columbus, Ohio, which is coming up in, geez, four weeks.
Yeah, we're right about there, bro. We're almost a month out from the Arnold to kick off the 2025 season. We have just returned. You at the LA Fit Expo. I want to get into that in just a second. I was coming from overseas. Barely made it back into town as we got snow here in Savannah for the first time in about
Amazing.
6 years. So it shut the airport down literally when I was coming back over from Italy, from Panata. Great new things coming from Panata, but we'll save that until the next broadcast, brother. But tell me about the LA Fit Expo. I know you had some superstars out there. Saw some reunion of some of the old dogs. So how was it,
Yeah.
Shawn?
Well, I mean, the talk of the town was with the muscle contest event that's put on by Tamer El Gundy, the new division, fit model division, that's been kind of the buzz in
Yeah.
the off season. The latest NPC edition, I guess they're going to open up a pro division next year in 2026. But I got to tell you, it's nothing we haven't seen before. It was a little bit underwhelming from my perspective. I'm not sure what kind of legs it's going to get as the year progresses, and what regions are going to really take off. Because we know as when wellness came along, the South America market opened up pretty big. Those girls came on hot and heavy, the Brazilians, Colombians.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure where this fit model is going to go, because when I think the word model, I think a little bit more glamour, a little more luxurious, almost to the point where, remember, we used to have Oxygen magazine with Robert Kennedy and all the
Yeah.
like
Sure.
bikini
Sure.
babes. I think that's what the bikini division started out, was supposed to be like hot chicks in bikinis, but the fit model really did look, for the first, you know, run, it really did look like just regular girls that don't work out. So I'm not sure what the angle is here, because just putting a girl in a bikini, it doesn't really make it a contest, really. I don't know where the actual contest for fit model is and what the reward is. I just had visions of thinking like maybe Miss America type stuff, where these girls are glam girls, less heavy on the fitness because of the rules. So, like, we don't want definition, we don't want curves, we don't want all the things that they said they don't want was pretty much what we got, and it didn't look like a whole lot that I'd pay money to see.
Well, it's going to be very difficult to judge, believe it or not. It actually gets easier as you go up to. We've said for many years, Shawn, that the easiest division to judge at any given show is men's
Yeah.
open bodybuilding because you have extremes, because you have a lot of muscularity. It sticks out like a sore thumb. The leaders separate themselves from the pack almost immediately, depending on the competition. As you go down in terms of level of development, muscularity, conditioning, and so forth, it increasingly gets harder. Men's physique,
Yeah.
when it first started, if you remember, was very difficult to judge until it actually got to a certain level. So, an entry level division is going to have its challenges when it comes to judging physiques because you've got very little muscularity. You've got an entry
Uh,
level developmental stage, whatever you want to call it. Um, I think it'll do fairly well. It's the road less traveled, but I do have my reservations. I think it's a great NPC addition. Not that we need more divisions, but the more the merrier. Where I have an issue, Shawn, and I'm not so sure will be the way to go, is a pro division because by definition, it's an entry level position. Therefore, it's a
sure.
novice division, which we already have, which let's not even go down that road. But I don't know how you're a pro at being a novice. That would be my only reservation with it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this looked like my true novice competitors that I had in Hawaii. I mean, they looked very amateur. There was really no skill involved in the competition. So I'm not sure. It looked more like a everyone gets an award participation division. So I'm gonna have to watch and see how it plays out. But to get a trophy because you're a girl in a bikini doesn't sound like a competition. I just didn't see, there was not a lot of level. There was not very much development to be celebrated. When you read the rules, it doesn't look like you want to celebrate development because it's almost telling you to pump your brakes. We don't want development in this division. So if they don't want development in this division, I wish it would just be called bikini model, because then we're looking for chicks with a little bit more TNA, like the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, like the Oxygen
Sure.
Gym
Sure.
covers back in the day. We had like Lori Donnelly. We had just some of the very beginning bikini model chicks. But it's not something that I'm going to pay to watch. We'll give them a
Well, listen,
platform and then see where it goes.
it's not our forte. Listen, we're in the open bodybuilding pretty much exclusively. That said, and I got to
Yeah.
be fair, I got to play both sides fair. The same thing was said about bikini when we introduced it 10 plus years ago. Same thing was said
Well,
about
hey,
men's physique
I'm
when
going to
we introduced.
pop quiz. Who was the first bikini Olympia winner?
Ooh, first bikini winner was it? It wasn't Sonia Adcock, was it?
Sonia Gonzalez at the time.
Ah, so I was right. Just yeah,
Yeah,
different married name,
5 foot.
but yeah,
Yeah,
I do remember.
tiny.
But
But
they listen.
She would not have been our textbook
No,
bikini chick at the time during those years.
well,
2003, I think it was. I mean, she was not a textbook. What we had our eyes wrapped around bikini. We knew a lot of bikini girls back in those
yeah.
days, and she was not like the one.
And this is why I submit. We got to keep it fair. Again, it's not our bag, but that's okay. We can still report on it. Yes, it's going to have some growing pains. It's going to take a while to get what you want to get up there. But listen, bikini was not welcomed with open arms when we first introduced it. Neither was men's physique.
Yeah,
And to be fair, classic really had its share of detractors when it came out, saying, "Well, it's bodybuilding. It's the same thing. What's the difference?" And those have become some of our biggest divisions. So we'll reserve until we see this play out for a year and kind of see where it goes. And to be fair to the pro league, I mean, let's kind of see where it goes and where they can get a handle on. Okay, maybe we need to change this. Actually, I like your idea of a bikini model.
yeah,
Okay, it puts a little semblance of what we already have in there. But
yeah.
again, a little something for everybody. Shawn, you may have noticed I've been drinking this brand new Celsius drink on here. They just sent this to me. I got to say, strawberry passion fruit. This thing's awesome. For anybody
Yeah.
looking, Celsius, one of our big sponsors here, and I appreciate their ongoing support here. But this is every week they send me something new, and tell you what, man, this one's a knockout, bro.
Yeah, they were a big hit in Hawaii. We had them sponsor our show out there. I think they ran into like uh, postage. When you ship the weight, they charge you by the weight.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
shipping out to Hawaii got pretty expensive for Celsius, but they were a big hit out there with the athletes.
Well, let's get into some bodybuilding news. We've been off for a week or so with travel. So, a few things have come across my feed, and I want to address them. First and foremost, the 300-pound monster is back in the room, Shawn. Now, if I have read 4 or 5, this guy's 300 pound. Nick Walker's 306, and he's starting his preps. And Sampson's 300 and something. This is not unique. I mean, you saw this especially back in the day when Dorian kind
Oh
of ushered in
yes.
that whole 300-pound thing, and then the next thing you know, everybody was 300. Was it
Yeah,
necessary?
we had JP Fuchs, we
Yeah.
had Mike Francois, we had Big Nasser, Marcus
Nasser,
Rule, Paul Dillette. I mean, everybody was at that 300 point. Yeah, I
bro,
would
we
say.
had 400-pounders back then, if you remember.
Yeah, Big Greg Kovacs was out there. Yeah,
And Trevor, right? I mean, both
Trevor.
these
Yeah,
guys were
you're right.
400-pound monsters. But my question to you is this: it's kind of made its rounds again here. Is there some magic that occurs at 300 pounds, bro?
Yeah, a lot of damage. I think while everything else gets bigger, the one muscle that doesn't is your heart. The one thing that has to work harder in the internal system is the heart. And it's a very short run for a lot of those 300-pound bodybuilders because it's like diminishing returns. We're impressed initially, and then after a while, like Nasser, a former Arnold Classic champion, a first runner-up in the Olympia, at the end of his career, he couldn't qualify literally to compete in the Mr. Olympia, let alone
Yeah.
break the top 10 of the Night of Champions, a show that I believe he won one time. So most of the big guys on the way up are impressive, but it's very hard to sustain that upward growth. At some point, you got to get into the refinement area. Now, Nick at all of 5'7" at 300 pounds, I think he's probably one of the first. I don't even know that Jay Cutler was flirting with 300 pounds, but it was he's 5'9". Nick Walker was already kind of boxy and short, and so I don't know how that's going to be distributed. He is not the next Victor Richards. No one said that he was short on the muscle side, so I'm really hoping he's doing some high rep, high intensity workouts to try to bring that weight down. A former short guy, well, still short, but
Yeah, you're
a
still
guy that
short,
used to
bro. Yeah.
a guy that used to play the yo-yo diet was Lee Priest, right? Lee Priest
Yeah.
used to bounce up and down and up and down. He literally have to lose 50 pounds, and as hard as it is to put 50 pounds on, it's even harder on the body to take it off. It doesn't necessarily translate into gains. You put on that extra 50 pounds, you're lucky to get 2 or 3 quality pounds of muscle. I think Nick's going to have to be very close to where he was last year at the Night of Champions when he narrowly eked out a victory over Fitzwater. If he shows up 10 pounds heavier, he'll have a built-in excuse for missing his peak. I don't think he's going to put on 10 pounds of quality muscle after gaining an extra 50 pounds in the off season. It's just rarely seen that we are blown away by a guy that does that in the off season.
Well, I guess the question at hand, I don't want to waste time into the health implications. We all get that, and everybody knows we're not big proponents of that. However, just from a pure physical standpoint of the physique you're going to present,
Yeah.
this is a real old school technique, bro. The idea of bulking and all that stuff literally was out of the 60s and 70s. That's when we came up in the 70s. And that was what you bulked up and you kind of brought it down. And that was the
Right.
conventional wisdom back then. But we're a lot smarter now, or at least we're supposed to be, and all that. Is there any sense to bulking up to that degree? Everybody knows you're going to put on weight. You're not going to be in contest shape all year. We all get that. You're going to push a little heavier weight. But the magic of this 300-pound marker that these guys use, is there any advantage, in your opinion, of getting that heavy and having to take off that much weight? Or is it just more weight you got to take off?
But it's just more weight. It's more work. It's more psychological warfare. No one on the day of the show is going to ask Nick Walker how much he weighs. He's not
No.
alone in this. There's a lot of bodybuilders that play this
Oh,
scale
yeah.
game, but
Yeah.
no one's going to ask and no one's going to care, nor will it even matter when you're standing up there next to a guy like Fitzwater and you're up against these, Derek Lunsford. It's not a matter of pounds. It's a visual sport. And Leela Brada made a career out of that. I did. I made a career out of it. Um, he's a different animal. I fit Nick Walker in there with the Branch Warrens and maybe the Jay Cutler type style physique with Rich Gaspari. But even Gaspari, for all it's worth, he won an Arnold Classic, 3 first Olympia runner-ups, a slew of Grand Prix wins. His best was like 215, and he's very Gaspari-like with his
Mhm.
build. Um, this muscle thing that he's playing could backfire, and that's I don't know why he would want to open that door because again, I don't know anyone that's told Nick Walker that you're too small, you don't have enough muscle, and if someone did say that, they were foolish. But he, for whatever reason, is going to do it the hard way, and it may work and it may not work, but I don't know that it was necessary. But I know he's not alone. A lot of guys play this size game.
No, there's, like I said, I saw no less than 5 or 6, quote, 300-pound marks that have been achieved. And I couldn't help but kind of smile and think, that's really an old school technique that I thought would have ended some years. You bring up Branch Warren, right? Now, Branch Warren, who's placed as high as second in the Olympia back in his day, who was very consistent, rarely came in off. Okay, and when he did,
Yeah,
he was like Gasperi. It was so minimum that he was still the most ripped guy in the show. But I don't remember Branch, as hard as he trained and as intense as he was never anywhere near 300 pounds, and nor did he want to be. Even Johnny Jackson, his partner, the world's strongest bodybuilder at the time, also was never ever close to 300. I wonder if that is something that should have just been relegated to the old days and not really hashed up. Like are these guys particularly trying to get to 300, or is it just Samson is 6 foot tall and
yeah,
he's a big bone guy? He is 300 in the offseason without trying.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, these guys have trainers. I'm not sure where their trainers' heads are at when they're talking to these
Where's the
sport
guru, Shawn?
bodybuilders.
Where's the guru?
Yeah, I'm not sure where do they just check out? I don't understand where are they at because, if Nick's 250 pounds on stage, I'll be surprised. But it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of food, it takes a lot of effort to get to 300 pounds, and that's really not where the challenge is. Again, I think I mentioned about Samson that if he stayed close to his competition weight and trained off season near or around that weight, he would look much more conditioned, much more refined. It stands to reason. But if you go throw on this extra weight that you got to take off that you don't necessarily need, I mean, it makes everything harder. And I guess the further away we get from the scale, we know through trial and error and through watching these other examples that the failure rate increases a lot when you play with all that volume. Nick Walker did not need volume. What Nick Walker needed was a very good run at a long off season, closer to his training weight, so he could actually train his muscles, not get fat, diet off the fat, and then try to hope that it shows up on the day of the show. So only
Well,
Nick knows what he's doing, and his trainer. It's something that we've seen other athletes do with a high failure rate. So let's see if Nick can pull this one off.
well, from what I can see, whether it's Nick or again anybody else, we're going to use him because he put it out there. And he was whatever the weight was, 306 pounds, 7 pounds, something he
Yeah.
achieved, and now he's going to start refining it. Okay, here's the problem I got, Shawn. Nick Walker, as you mentioned, did not lose the last show or whatever he competed last because he was too small, because he didn't have enough muscle, even. All right. If it's anything, the knock on Nick Walker has been that he's blocky, and he's a little thick in the waist, and his proportions aren't the best. Okay, well, you can't do anything about his proportions. I mean, your proportions are your proportions. However, you can trim a waist down, and trimming a waist down 1 inch is worth 3 inches on the shoulders, and the thigh flare, which is also a knock on him, is that his thighs don't flare from the front. From the side, they're as thick as anybody's out there, but he needs more sweep on the legs or appearance of sweep on the legs. In your opinion, wouldn't it have made more sense to not be 300, to maybe actually keep it a little bit leaner? Try to draw that waist in just a little bit more to give the illusion of a bigger sweep, a bigger X frame. Would that not have been a better plan?
Again, you got to consider where you're getting your advice from. This is where the coach is supposed to
I'm
come
getting
in.
it from you.
So,
I'm asking Shawn Ray, the trainer, the
well,
guru Shawn.
my professional opinion is no, man, we don't need to get bigger. We need to get better. And getting better doesn't mean you got to get bigger, because you haven't heard any criticism about your size. He didn't lose his last show, he won his last show.
Yeah.
So he just needed better condition if he's going to go to the next level. I don't know that blowing up in the offseason is the right way to go. I'm not going to contradict his coach, but certainly I'm questioning his coach, because you just made things a whole lot more interesting should this kid not materialize on stage the way that we thought he should. He's not going to be showing up in Pittsburgh, in New York, not prepared. He's doing everything he can to win. I just don't know that an extra 50 pounds off season is going to translate to 10 pounds of good, rock hard, solid muscle and correct the mistakes that we saw him display in New York. Although he won, a lot of people thought he shouldn't have, and it was more of a conditioning issue,
Right.
not a size issue. I don't know that he addressed the conditioning this offseason. So far, we know he is addressing specifically size. Well, I don't know who he plans on standing next to other than Fitzwater in Pittsburgh and New York, but he's not standing next to Sampson and these other big guys as far as I know. And even if he was, he's not a shrinking violet standing next to those guys. He holds his own pound for pound. This extra weight, we know, can blur the lines. And if his lines aren't crisp and clean, we're going to look back at this offseason and know the answers. We'll know the reason why.
Well, as they've talked about the signs of the apocalypse, Shawn, and you've heard them all in the, in biblical lore and all that kind of stuff, and perhaps rain, fire will rain down from the top, and the frogs will come out, and or locusts thing. The fourth sign of the apocalypse was always that Lee Priest would be back in the IFBB, and I'll be damned if it didn't happen. He actually is, and I have it confirmed from the Pro League. It was not a Photoshop. We all saw the Pro Card. Lee Priest has applied, and he is back in the IFBB. It does bring up one thing first and foremost, which is I know he's been fond of going out there saying he's been banned for life, and he actually titled something that he was banned for life and all that. How do you get back in when you're banned for life? How does that happen?
Well, what does back in mean? Can my brother apply for an IFBB Pro League card? I mean, Lee's last competition was when? Do you know what year?
It was in a different. It was in the NABA universe, I believe. I don't know,
Okay,
five,
okay.
6 years
All
ago.
right. Okay. It was NABA. Let's just say it was over the NABA. How do you get in the IFBB if you're competing in another federation? I've had this issue with other athletes coming to do my shows. If you're a member of another federation, pro federation, don't you have to go back through the amateurs to requalify for your pro card to be a participant on a pro stage?
Yep.
Okay. Did that happen?
No, it didn't.
Okay, so So I remember Milos. I remember Lee's coming into the IFBB. He had to have help from, I think it was Jim Mannion at the time, or
Yeah,
Wayne Amelia, to become a pro because he'd won the Australia Universe 3 times.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
Milos Sarchev had something like that. I think Gunther Slurkamp, even Gary Stridham back in 1986. But we're almost 40 years ago. This guy was competing in another pro federation. Wasn't he the president of a pro federation over there?
I believe he was the, if I'm correct, he was the interim president. Take that for what it is of NABA Australia.
Okay.
Um,
So
he
I'm just pointing
competed.
out observations here.
Well, he's also a promoter of NABA show. Up in September of last year, he actually promoted the NABA show. Now that
So,
said, um, again, yes, I mean, technically speaking, he probably should have had to gone back to being an amateur. But let's just say we're going to waive that because he's Lee Priest and he's got a track record of a bodybuilding level.
all right.
Okay, let's just go with that. My question is I thought you were banned for life.
Yeah, well, that's my point. I don't know that the IFBB Pro League banned him for life, but I just thought there were certain things you had to do to become an IFBB Pro, which is why we have all these qualifications. Letting in a president of a federation, a promoter of another federation, I guess all is forgiven. The question is, Bob, the $1 million question. Forget about him being back. Great,
Right.
we got Lee Priest back. Give me a percentage of the odds of Lee Priest stepping on an IFBB Pro League stage now that he has an IFBB Pro League card? What
I
is the
actually
percentage?
I have the answer to that, my friend, and it is the same percentage that you and I have of getting back on a pro league stage, which is 0.0.
Zero.
Okay, the chant
Okay,
for all
so
these
so, so
people
we're
out there
yeah,
thinking that you're going to see Lee back in action. Listen, it's not going to happen, folks.
it's
Okay, he did
nothing
not
sure.
get back in here. First of all, I don't know why he got back in the league. We can dispute all day if he should have been let back in, but that's
Welcome
another
home.
day.
Yeah.
What his point is, I don't really know, other than complaining and bitching about it. He never brought up NABA ever, even when he was promoting shows. He never heard anything about NABA or their people or their politics or anything like that. He seems to always focus his attention on the IFBB, despite the fact he wasn't even in the IFBB. But that said, I'm not so sure what the point of a pro card is, unless his point is to get suspended again. And I say that with all due candor because I can see Lee being the martyr. Lee has made a career out of being the victim. I've been banned for life. I was fined 100 times from Wayne. I'm the bad boy. I speak up for the athletes, and they don't want me around. Again, I've been banned. I've been banned for life. I mean, we've seen it all, right? So unless his point is to get banned on purpose, basically, once again, making him the martyr, making him the victim, what would the point be?
Here's your pro card. Hope you're happy. Merry Christmas. Or
Right.
get on stage. I mean, the guy did make a documentary. I heard from all accounts. I heard it's pretty good. Um, I don't know that he's in the health space to get on a bodybuilding stage. I know that he's had some health issues before. Um, I imagine he's north of 50 at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I were him, hell, why not? I'd be eyeballing the Masters Olympia. The question is, I thought that he had to be invited to that show, and if so, why not go? However, he may run into a couple of brick walls in the form of Brandon Curry, William Bonek. You know, there's some pretty decent Masters guys that are north of
Well,
40.
yes. Listen,
Um,
bro. Forget about
but
the brick. The brick wall is
he-
himself. Listen, he's got some injuries. He's had nerve damage from an accident he had a few years ago. And listen, we don't wish that on anybody. We like to bust balls and go back and forth. We've all had our love hate with Lee and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all in the interest of bodybuilding and journalism and all that stuff. But he actually had some serious nerve damage. You could see it in those
yeah,
pictures he posted last year or the year before, whatever
yeah,
it was. But the right side is gone. The pec is gone. The right arm is not nearly as big as the left arm is anymore. I assume it could be his whole right side because that's how nerves work. But they don't regenerate. They certainly don't regenerate at 50. We had this conversation just last year about a guy in a two-time Olympian, Big Ramy, and he's
yeah.
current. He's
He's current.
current,
Yeah.
but he's 10 years plus younger. So if you're
I,
50
I-
something, that ain't coming back. So, and he's tattooed from head to toe, which certainly wouldn't be helping the situation. So no, he's not going to compete again. I did see though, I gotta move this off to a different area because who knows what he's going to do. But I did
Mhm.
see, speaking of preset, this big thing came out comparing him to Keon Pearson, our current and reigning two-time 212 Olympia champion, and whether he would fare well against Keon or whether he would beat him. And I'd submit to you this: Both of you guys, you and Priest, who did compete against each other in the day before we had that division. Uh, Unless I'm wrong, and you can correct me, bro, but I don't think he ever even beat you.
No, he never beat me. And I don't think he would have beat Lee Labrada. So with that being said, um, Keon is the real deal. I look at Keon's physique and I'm impressed um, to the degree that when I saw Derek guest posing, I questioned why he's doing 212. He should be in the open. His first year out, he went and got second place in the open. Keon can do the same thing. Keon, for me, is in the conversation with being in the top three, top five of the Mr. Olympia. I don't know that. I think Lee Priest was sixth place once, I believe. I think his best placing was sixth place. I think the field was harder back then.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think there were more quality bodybuilders back in the day. But if we're talking about plugging Lee Priest in there with Keon, you gave him his pro card. You might as well give him a special invite to the Olympia. You want to make things interesting. I mean, if you're going to do the right thing and you want to make things right, give Lee Priest a special invite to the 212. Let's find out who's better, Keon or Lee Priest. I'd love to see that. I think all of us would, because I saw some comments where people were saying that Lee Priest at his peak
At his
would be
peak.
better than
Right.
Keon. And I don't know what they're looking at, because
Yeah.
soon as they turn around to the rear, which most of the contests are won and lost from, it's over. Keon's shoulder to waist differential. It's a man against boys from where I sit. Keon, he's a top Olympian in today's bodybuilding right now. I don't know that you can say the same thing about Lee Priest, even though I think the quality is not as deep as it was when Lee was at his peak. Mind you, when Lee was at his peak, he was there with the best of us, and the best he got was sixth place. So I think Keon Pearson could shake up the apple cart in the top three, top five of this year's Mr. Olympia. If Lee has his pro card, go ahead and give him that invitation and throw him into the 212, and let's see this. I mean, it's not fair age wise, but if we're going to have the conversation, we might as well watch the movie.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't think anybody's under the delusion that now he's going to do anything, but the context was back in his day at his peak. Now,
Yeah,
I'll take that to the next level. He never beat you during your heyday, and you guys would have both been the 212 competitors. That said, I'll even go the next generation. I don't ever have. It's funny because Flex Lewis, despite being a seven-time
yeah.
Olympia champ in a row, okay, um, isn't really brought up in that same I don't think Priest could have beaten Flex Lewis in any one of those Olympias.
Well,
At
I
his
think
peak,
Flex
I'm not
Lewis.
talking modern, I'm talking at his peak. I don't
Yeah.
believe he could have matched up with Flex Lewis, especially from behind.
Well, I think Lee Priest might win from the front, but when you turn him around to the back, it's lights out. I don't think that Flex Lewis gets enough credit,
No,
um,
he
and he
doesn't.
doesn't get he doesn't get the credit because we've said this a million times. You're only as good as the people you stand next to on stage. And in those seven Mr. Olympia victories in the 202, 212 division for Flex Lewis, there's no real notable bodybuilders. I mean, David Henry was okay, Kevin English was okay, and
And
Guy and
Jose
Derek
Raymond.
Carnes. Yeah, Jose. Those guys are okay, but we're not going to talk about them in awe. And so you're only as good as the people you stand next to, which says two things. One, um, he's winning because he's not competing against a solid field. Or two, he looks spectacular because he's not competing against a solid field. You could have taken Flex Lewis out right now and throw him in there with Shawn Clarita and Keon Pearson, and you got a dogfight. You got a serious conditioning issue for
Yeah,
some of those other bodybuilders, because James got in shape. His glutes, his back, his calves were freaking world class. I mean, his pecs are on par with Lee Priest.
yeah,
His back width is about the same. The difference is it's grainy and it's shredded.
yeah.
Lee Priest, from the hamstrings down, the glutes down, and across the back, would get smoked on stage against Flex Lewis. So it's not a knock on Lee Priest. I mean, Lee did a lot of crazy things when he was competing, but he caught a few guys when they weren't on. Like he beat Ronnie Coleman. I beat Ronnie Coleman. I beat Ronnie Coleman for 5 years, but you never hear me brag about that. I mean,
Right.
we all beat Ronnie Coleman before Ronnie arrived. He beat Chris Cormier. Chris Cormier flew in on a red eye flight that he missed. and he got caught sleeping with his pants down, and Lee Priest took him out. But that was Chris Cormier. That wasn't Flex Wheeler. That wasn't Kevin Leroney. That
Right.
wasn't me. That wasn't Paul Dillette. So his resume isn't as colorful as Flex Lewis. Although Flex Lewis, every time he went on that stage, he won those 7 contests uncontested. I might add, they were none of them were
Yeah.
disputable. One I think he lost to Hadi Chupan over in Korea. But that being said, if you're going to give out a pro card to a guy like Lee Priest with his checkered past, and he's not having to qualify, and he's a former member of another pro federation. I remember all the guys had to jump through hoops, including Lee Priest, to get to the pro league.
Yeah.
Now you're just going to hand a pro league card. Either you're doing it for one of two reasons: to placate to this kid and silence him, so he doesn't have anything bad to say, which will never happen with Lee. Lee's going to call it like it is. Or two, the bigger picture is you want him in the Olympia, and if you want him in the Olympia, give him his pro card, tell him to compete, or give him the special invite, and let's get it over with. I mean,
Well,
no point in tearing Lee Priest apart for his past. We all have one. He's here. He's an active member. Jim Mannion decided, and Tyler Mannion decided that he's a legitimate player. Now, if he doesn't compete, it's a nothing burger. We're giving the kid publicity for absolutely nothing. If he does compete, it's great for the fans of yesterday. It's great for the fans of tomorrow. But he is well beyond what he used to be with all the injuries you just talked about. And I'm not sure that there's enough meat on the bone for Lee that that even shows the interest. He doesn't look like he shows the interest in making some type of transformation, but maybe that'll come in the form of a Masters Olympia appearance or a Grand Prix. Maybe he'll wind up in Pittsburgh. How's that?
well, the only as a personal appearance, the only Olympia Lee would be sniffing these days is either a ticket to watch the Olympia coming up this year, or could punch his ticket to Tokyo, bro, because you do have the Masters Olympia,
I'd
which
love to
I'm
see that.
listen. And if I'm the promoter, I'd certainly give him. So would you, an invite
Yeah.
to come and show his stuff. But you bring up a great point with Flex Lewis, because I agree with you. I don't think he's ever gotten the respect fully that he deserves. Is it safe to say that Flex was like the Larry Holmes of bodybuilding, and that, here's a multi-year champ, but
Yes.
because Larry didn't really face the toughest competition all those years, he is never brought up. When you bring up the top heavyweight boxers in the world, it's always the same names, right? It's
Yes.
Ali and Foreman and Tyson and this guy, but you never hear the name Larry Holmes.
Yeah, and he's a victim of that because for those 7 years, and I was at every one of those Olympia championships that he won, and I watched him develop. I met Flex when he first came over to America. You were there. He played in my golf tournament for the
Yeah,
charity.
that's right.
Um, we watched that transformation, and in the blink of an eye, this guy's got 7 titles under his belt, and nobody ever talks about him. I think he is highly underrated, undervalued in our industry. He made such a big impact in such a short time that we forget how impressive he was. And I don't want to take the shine off of him, but we're talking about a retired bodybuilder in the form of Lee Priest, who got a free IFBB Pro Card. Let's see what he does with it. Flex Lewis, his legacy is going to live on because of what he's done in retirement. He's got one of the best gyms in all of Las Vegas. He's tied
Yeah.
in with Monster. I think he just became a father for the second time. He's heavy into promotions, and he is one of the most articulate bodybuilders out there. I love everything about Flex Lewis. Lee Priest has a chance to reinvent himself, and very few people have an opportunity to do that. So we're going to see a lot of the old Lee Priest now that he's a member of the IFBB Pro League, or we're going to see the Rebel return. And a couple of generations have missed that, and we don't know how that would play out in today, where feelings matter. You almost have to be careful what you say to and about other bodybuilders and individuals, to the degree that Lee may not be welcome with his delivery in today's society as he once was back in the day.
Well, to put a big bow on the Lee Priest thing, for the record, for those who don't know, Lee was banned years and years ago under the old IFBB regime. Um, he was then reinstated under Jim Mannion's rule when Jim got put in as the IFBB president. He was allowed back in the federation. I know that because I personally wrote his reinstatement letter back into the federation. He then chose to not compete and has his status ran out, basically. Like it went
Yeah.
past a year, and it was just never simply renewed after that. So all this hubbub about him being banned for life anytime after I got him back in, quote, helped get him back in. Okay, the Pro League put him back in. Was all bullshit. Okay, so there was no I'm still banned and I'm the only one that's banned for life. And clearly you're not banned for life because you're back in. So, but I want that clear for the record because he likes to muddle things out there and put his own truth to certain facts that just can't be ignored. So we wish you the best, Lee. There's nothing I would enjoy finer, my friend, than seeing you back on a stage at whatever age that you're at. So I think it would be very amusing and entertaining for the fans. So this week has been never short of spectacular, Shawn, when it comes to the world of bodybuilding. And I want to wrap this up kind of quickly because it's kind of a anomaly when we talk about bodybuilding. But in the NPC, we actually had a female competitor compete in the men's classic physique division. It was at a muscle contest show. I'm sure everybody's seen it all over the news now. This strikes an interesting chord because this is a tough one. You open that door and it could just turn into a circus real quick. I'm of old school, Shawn. I know you are too. If you're whatever gender you are at birth, that's to me what you should be competing in. But I hope this doesn't open up a door to a train wreck.
Well, it could. And if you want to avoid that, you just have to make your rules very clear. I do know I got a memo as a promoter that the teenage division starts at 18. I remember, I think Lee Priest said he was competing when he was 13. I think you said you competed when you're 15.
13,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I competed when I was 17. So if the teen division starts at 18, we're not going to see minors. We're not going to see 13, 14, 15-year-olds on a teen division in the NPC, which is very clear. I believe it's in the rule book. If the wording is not in an active rule book that to compete in a men's competition, you have to be a biological male. To compete in a women's competition, you have to be a biological female. Then those lines, like last weekend at the convention center, are going to get blurred. I was there. I saw the female compete in the men's classic physique. The argument was some people thought that it was not fair. I think there was only two people, and she got second.
Big
I
surprise
never
there.
heard. Well, I never heard her say I'm a man. Nor was she pretending to be a man. She put on classic physique shorts and put some pasties on and walked out on stage and got judged. She got second out of two. And if that's a gateway to bigger issues, then the federation has to clarify what divisions you are allowed to compete in as a man and what
Right.
divisions you are allowed to compete in as a female. I know the president Trump had mentioned we have two genders, and that's going to basically be the rule of law going forward. And if you're going to let a woman compete in a men competition, it's not going to be too long before we see a man jump into a women's division and we're going to hear the uproar. And if you are a man and you're not allowed to walk into a woman's bathroom, or if you're a female and you're not allowed to use a man's bathroom, then I don't know that you should be allowed to cross over into men's divisions as a female or vice versa. And the only way that that is enforced is if when I go to register, it says in black and white in the rule book, in the NPC and IFBB Pro League, what I'm allowed to compete in and what I'm not allowed to compete in as a man. So
Yeah, this
if you want to avoid those issues, if the federation wants to make it clear, they're going to have to put it in writing so that it's black and white. Men in men's division, women in women's division, and I know that when I go to register for the division, it's there. It avoids any kind of litigation.
and here's the follow up on that, Shawn, because I would have this concern because once I think it opens up that Pandora's box, it literally could go anywhere after that. For instance, somebody shows up at your show and they say, I want to sign up for the teenage division. You say, okay, how old are you? And they say, 40. You go, well, you have to be 18 or 19 to compete. Well, I identify as a teenager, right?
Yeah.
I identify as a man. Let's go the opposite. I'm a 25-year-old guy who's going to kill everybody in this show. Hey, I want to go in the Masters too. It's like, well, you got to be 40 and over. Well, I identify as a Masters. Now,
Right.
listen, people think that's stupid, except for one thing. You can't let women compete in men's divisions and men compete in women's divisions and then turn around and go, oh, it doesn't matter what you identify as. It's like, whoa, hang on a second. Now you open yourself up for litigation. Okay, the very essence of discrimination. So it has to be one way or the other. In fairness, I don't know if we have language in there. And if we don't, I certainly hope, like you're saying, we adopt some language in there to make it very black and white and very clear, because this could be a train wreck. This could go south quickly, where these people are looking for an opportunity to either sue somebody or have a platform. It's nothing to get 5 or 6 of your friends and go, hey, man, let's go in this federation. Everybody competes in a different, category, and we're going to make a big statement and all that stuff. And then this is not what this is intended for.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the NPC clearly tells athletes that, and IFBB Pro League, that you cannot go over and compete in another federation. If you
That's
do,
right.
you're going to be
Number
banned.
one rule. Correct.
Well, number 2 rule, if you're a male, you are only allowed to compete in men's divisions. If you're female, only female. That has to be in writing, the same way that we're moving towards this show, and many like ours. The opinions of our guests do not reflect the opinions of the network, for example. If you're
Right.
talking, we see that already. I mean, they're doing it on ESPN, they're doing it on a lot of stuff. They have to make that little declaration. This is a federational issue. It's not my problem as a promoter. You show up, you pay your entry fee, you're getting on the stage. You could be in a monkey suit. I don't care. Um, the federation dictates who's allowed to compete in what divisions.
Or we can have the monkey division. We'll just start
Yeah.
that. And
It's
so,
inevitable. Well, here, let me tell you the worst case scenario. We saw one person do it, but we may see 5 people jump in. Five
right,
women
right.
decide. 5 women decide. Let's jump over into the men's bodybuilding. Look, it's going to turn into a circus, and the individual promoter is going
Mm-hmm.
to be left with this egg on his face if the federation doesn't put it in writing, send it out to all the athletes, registered athletes, make the promoters put it on their registration form. So when you sign up, you can clearly see there is no wiggle room for a female in a men's division, nor a male in a women's
And
division.
and let's be clear, Shawn. This isn't fair to the athletes. It's like, obviously a couple of years ago, Riley Gaines and all that with Leah Thompson. The big 6'4" swimmer who went in the women's sing and again won and all that. That wasn't fair to the women that were competing. I look at this in the same, especially at the pro level. Everybody worked hard. Everybody got there. Everybody earned their way. And then you look next to you. I mean, listen, if you remember some years ago, Jocelyn Pelletier, who was an older gentleman, but rightfully earned his pro card back in like '73 at the Mr.
Yeah.
International. Was known to be at the go to the New York Pro, the Night of the Champions, as it was actually before that. And he would bring the house down, but not in a good way. They would laugh at him. He had no physique. The guy had lost his mind some years earlier, but it was always embarrassing to have him out there because it's like, this guy doesn't belong on a pro stage. He's making a mockery out of something that some people take very seriously. This is a pro sport. People put a lot of money and effort and energy into putting on a proper show, a professional show. And then you got, this clown show that shows up next to you. And you're right. That's what we have to be careful of, is that this doesn't start an epidemic. How about in the reverse? How about you get 5, 6 dudes that go out there? And I mean dudes. And we're not talking about, wow, there was a guy years ago that competed in the women's bodybuilding and, they didn't know or whatever. I'm talking about regular guys, right? Where you just put on a women's outfit and go out there with a full beard and go, oh, I identify as a female. And again,
Well,
now you've got something that's a laughing stock. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure that's not where we want to be going.
no, and it's a federational issue, and they need to get in front of it, not the promoters, so that we don't have to try to explain this away or caught in some litigation because we don't allow someone to do something that they're legally able to do because it's not in writing.
All right, bro. Well, next week we'll have a special edition of The Voice of Bodybuilding. Why, you ask? Because it's Super Bowl time, Shawn. That's right. Even though my Buffalo Bills should have, would have, and could have got in there, they didn't. And once again, it's the Chiefs and the Eagles. And, you and I, as football fanatics, we will be watching first and foremost. But before we get to that, once again, Shawn, I'd like to thank our major sponsors: Panada, Mutant, Icon, Celsius, ProFit, Egg Whites International, of course, American Male Wellness. We appreciate your ongoing support here at the Voice of Bodybuilding. For Sugar Shawn Ray, I'm Bob Chick. We'll see everybody next week.